Welcome to the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast, presented to you by HETRA University. If you've landed here, you're probably passionate about how horses help people. Whether you're an instructor, therapist, in the business, or have experienced equine assisted services yourself, we're glad you're here. Join us as we talk about the benefits, the science, to-dos, how-tos, and all of the reasons why what we do is so much more than just a pony ride. And now, from the HETRA campus in Gretna, Nebraska, here's your host, occupational therapist Katie King.
Welcome back, everyone. I have an incredible episode to share with you today. But first, I just wanted to tell you all how thankful I am for this podcast and for all of you listeners. I truly get to meet some of the most inspiring people through this special project, and I really enjoy sharing the stories with all of you. What we do at HETRA and what so many of y'all are doing in your own centers is so special, and it has changed so many lives. I hope that listening to episodes like this one keeps encouraging all of you, either to keep providing the services that you're doing or to seek them if you really are interested in them. Anyway, thank you for listening to my sappy ramble, but today is not about me, it's about Megan. And Megan is a participant at HETRA. She was gracious enough to share her story with you guys and explain how the horses have changed her life and how she has healed through the immense trauma of losing her son this last year. Kelli Hatzenbueler is also with us. She is our resident mental health therapist, and she's here filling us in on all the activities and the work that they did together to help Megan heal and truly find her confidence and peace again. So I hope you all enjoy this story, and I hope that it touches you in the way that it did for me. Hello, welcome everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Today I have Kelli and Megan, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about their experience in a program that's a little bit different that we have here at HETRA. And I'm anxious to hear Megan's story and share it with you guys. So Megan, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I am Megan, obviously. I am in the military and I'm still active duty, which is in the National Guard. So my full-time job is instructing future leaders in the Army. So I've known Kelli for a long time because she used to be our suicide prevention. She'd come out and do our annual briefings and all that. So I've known her for a while. So I have like 4 years left to retirement. So like the lights at the end of the tunnel. I love my job. It's very rewarding. Right now we're virtual though, so we don't have that face-to-face interaction with the students. So that's been a challenge that we've been getting better at. And I mean, we're still like educating future leaders out there. So we're getting our mission done for sure. And it's still rewarding, you know. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've got 3 kids, 24-year-old son, Ethan, and he is also full-time military too. So he got lucky. He's a recruiter for them. And then my daughter, Eva, she is going to soon to be 12, going on 21. Mm-hmm. She is my Eva for sure. She's definitely got this awesome personality. And then Cooper, who was 15 years old.
Thank you for sharing your story. Miss Kelli, tell us about you. You've been on here before.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I am Kelli. I'm a mental health therapist out here at HETRA. I went part-time a couple months ago. I work for HSI full-time now as a victim advocate for human trafficking, a really pretty intense job, but I love what I do. I'm a social worker by trade. And yes, Megan said I was a suicide prevention coordinator for the military. Did that for about 8 years. Educated on prevention, intervention skills, and postvention work. And I just love to help people in any capacity that I can.
And that's how Megan came to us, right? You guys started working together.
Yes. So the reason I came to HETRA, January 5th, 2020, that evening, my family and I went out to Texas Roadhouse because Sunday nights are kind of like our family dinner night. So we did that. Me and the kids did that, and then came home, and then we played some cards, and then everybody kind of went off. My oldest son wasn't living with us, so it was Cooper and Eva at home. And then I was kind of settling in downstairs, you know, and heard a weird noise upstairs, whatever. And so I'm like, okay, we had guinea pigs upstairs. So I thought maybe it was our guinea pigs just acting up because they were just crazy. But anyway, went to find out that my son had taken his own life. And our world was completely turned upside down that evening. I remember bits and pieces, here and there, but it's just like a complete fog. There was no indication, no warning signs. And all I can remember saying to everybody there was, I teach this because that's what we teach, part of my job, and all the education and training that we have in the military side. And on top of that, I was getting my degree in behavioral science. So I just couldn't, it just felt like a horrible nightmare. I'm like, how could this happen? This is my Cooper. What happened? Like, what went wrong? And so, I mean, months, went by, and I knew that I needed to, and Kelly had messaged me a couple times too, checking in with me. And then we have a mutual friend who is also our chaplain. And he's like, and he really recommended, he's like, you need to go reach out to Kelly. They have an awesome program out there and everything like that. And it took me a while. I think it wasn't until, I think it was October. So it had been like 8-9 months, after Coop got his wings and was taken from us. And so I set something up with Kelly. I think we did the Veterans Day where we came out and we brushed the horses, got familiar. So I brought my daughter with me. And I'm like, as soon as I walked into the barn and like smelt like the horses, all that, I'm like, oh, it just like this sense just came over me like, this is the place I need to be. And so Kelly and I spoke, on a program possibly and everything like that. And then we started, was it a 10-week program?
Well, we run in 12-week increments, but I don't know that we started right at the beginning of a 12-week.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of did a trial just to see, if this is a good fit, because you and Eva were looking for something to not only do together, but just as an activity, let's see if it works. And you tried a couple times and it really did stick.
Yeah.
So then we did the 12-week from beginning to end.
Yeah. And it was like, it was great because it was something to look forward to each week. And just like the different activities, because we talked to Kelly in the office for about a half an hour before. Mm-hmm. And then she kind of explained the activity that we were going to be doing with the horses and why. And I grew up with horses. So, I mean, I thought I knew, I had I knew I had a decent understanding of horses and, what to do, what not to do. And all that. Oh, gosh, no. There's so much more to horses and the whole psychology and like how, and I knew animals kind of feed off humans, but horses, I didn't realize how much they feed off their human as well, too. So that's been a very eye-opening, and I can't even begin to tell you how much I've learned. Like not even in the last, it hasn't even been a year since I've been with HETRA, how much I've learned like personally, and then like just all the education that when I work with Edie or Kelly on just the whole like the horse and person like interactions. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy to me and I love it. It's challenging. If I'm full of anxiety when I get there, and I'll be honest sometimes with Edie too. And she's like, how you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm a little anxious tonight. Mm-hmm. And she's like, okay, and she works me through that as we're doing the exercises and stuff. And then Kelly, she's there to just be my ear. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge support system. It feels like there's times when I would be driving out here or to Valley that I was just overcome with it's a good word for it. Gratefulness maybe, or thankfulness that I would, like cry because I was so grateful for this opportunity and how much it really has impacted my life and how much it's gotten me through these last few months. So it's awesome. I can't explain it.
And I can't explain how much growth there has been. So when you first started coming, you were in a really hard place, mm-hmm. a hard season of life. You had experienced trauma that, nobody can even fathom. But you were very open to the opportunity, open to having conversations, open to building the rapport with the horses. And I remember one of the first sessions out here, and I don't remember what activity we were doing, maybe long line lunging or something fairly simple and straightforward. And you had a lot of energy in that horse, but I think you were harboring a lot of energy inside. And you have since learned what that looks like through the horse, through the activities. We'll give you a more sensitive horse and you'll see that energy and you're like, oh, I need to identify what's going on inside, because on the outside that I'm fine or I'm good is really easy to do. But on the inside, what are we really dealing with here? And you have been open to that process. So what was going to be, a couple weeks and then maybe a 12-week session has almost turned out to just shy of a year out here.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah. And then I jumped on the opportunity. They invited me to come out to Valley. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes, and we really focused in, and it's just me and another girl that go, on the veteran side of the house. So, it's just amazing. And just to even go there, I don't care if we do anything or not, but just to hang out with the horses or, just visit. It's just it's just a happy place for me because of the horses. And it, I think we talked right before this started, my spirit animal. It is definitely a horse, and it always has been. It's always been a happy place for me because animals are just wonderful creatures. So
I agree. It's amazing to me how much horses really do mirror your soul. I even noticed that, excuse me, when working with my young horse, even on the lunge line, like you said, I can just tell, when he's crazy, I need to look at my internalness and be like, okay, you're a little crazy. Let's take a deep breath, and it's even on a day that you don't even think that you have anything going on, they know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And they put you in check real quick. And one horse in particular, she's got the similar background, she's extra sensitive, and trauma and all that stuff. So I really, knowing now, the first time I worked with her, I really, Edie really had to tell me, deep breaths, you've got to release that energy, just breathe in, breathe out, and I had to really just kind of focus on myself so I could, so the horse could feel my energy. Yeah. So that we could, be partners. And since I know that now, we've made a pretty good relationship, and she's probably one of my favorites because I feel like that sensitivity wise, we are so similar. So that's been probably the most memorable, I think, is working with her because, she is definitely, she can tell if something's off with you. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to see what's within myself, take those deep breaths,
Yeah.
And
I think that's something interesting to note too, Kelly, and you've done this for a little while now and can see some of that, especially when pairing different people with different horses, and how that personality of the horse and the sensitivity of the horse makes a big difference. Because I think in what we do, it's typical to have horses that are very desensitized and very, just our steady eddies, which is really important in a lot of the work we do. But then when we start looking at, things like what you guys are doing, it is a little bit more important to have a horse that can feel those things and sense those things. I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit.
So we had to kind of change up a little bit of what we were doing. We were using very desensitized horses that are used in our program for a specific reason. And there's a reason that they're here, like you said, and that they are, nothing really gets them riled up. And that's so important to most of our programming. But when we're dealing with mental health and we're dealing with digging down into emotions, we kind of want a horse with the ability to get in touch with that. So we moved locations and we're working with some outside horses that aren't so desensitized, aren't doing the same job day in and day out. And they have histories. Well, all the horses do. There's a history behind there. But learning what that history is as we're kind of diving into ourselves has been such a fun process. Because we, knowing what Megan's trauma is and what she's going through, but we have others that are within our group that have different traumas and different things that they're going through. So piecing them together with these horses that I'm not super familiar with has been kind of a fun learning experience, just watching that growth together and learning different things about the horses. Like, oh, wow, it does that when I do this, or, I stand with my shoulders really, really big and make myself big. And that cowers the horse down. What is going on with that? Do I do that with people on the outside world? I use my voice really loud and that doesn't bother the horse. But maybe if I just tone my softness or soften my tone down, do I do that with people? So we always kind of relate that back to how am I on an everyday, day in and day out, and what does that look like? And try to grow from that,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So listeners, just so you know, we have HETRA and then kind of a secondary facility that's a little bit more private and has a different set of horses that we use for programming like this, just so you guys aren't confused. But so the program, what was the technical program title that you guys were doing together?
So we've done a couple, right, Megan?
Yes.
We started with just the wellness coaching. And wellness coaching, we did a little bit of podcast about that. I've done some internet training stuff about that, but it can be there's a webinar about it. It can be a million different things depending on who you're working with and what you're working with. So with Megan, it was Megan and her daughter Eva that came out for wellness, quote unquote, wellness coaching. And every day they would stop out. We would do a check-in.
Every day?
No, not every day. Oh. Sorry. Once a week.
Okay. I was like, every day. Wow.
Once a week when they would come out, we would do a check-in. We talked for about 20 minutes or so in the classroom. I got a better feel of where they were at. I got a better feel of, this week's been rough, or we've had a really great week, or we've got something coming up that is really nerve-wracking. Let's work through that, different anniversaries and different things that are stressful within our lives on a day-to-day basis, but more so when you have a tragedy like this.
Right.
So I got a better feel of what we were going into the arena to work with. And I kind of had an idea of what activity I wanted to do. But that meeting, that 20 to 30 minutes beforehand would really solidify. And there were times that I had to make changes. Like I wanted to do this activity, but they're not there right now. We need to make some adjustments, either dial it back or let's push it forward. And that's kind of where we started, was with that wellness coaching. We have since grown into more of a academia where you're learning more about how to work with horses, I guess more at a performance level, if that makes sense. And not so much the wellness coaching, but the check-in before and after always happens, no matter what we're doing.
Yeah. And the cool thing about horses is we're always growing, mentally, physically, sometimes, working with the horses, no matter what we're doing, whether it's more of a wellness coaching model or more of a, like horse, like you said, academia model.
This episode of the Not Just a Pony Ride podcast is sponsored in part by
Equiforce. Equiforce is a database that allows you to track every facet of your organization, from horse, donor, and volunteer management to scheduling, grant tracking, incident reports, and tracking participant progress too. This is not a one-size-fits-all setup. Instead, Equiforce personally works with you to learn how your facility functions and takes note of your specific terminology so that they can create a unique system to match the needs of your organization. And of course, Equiforce provides an ongoing training and support so that your database can grow with you. Visit them at www.equiforce.com. That's EQUI-FORCE.com.
This episode is also sponsored in part by
Wooden Horse Corporation and the Equicizer. The Equicizer is a handcrafted, non-motorized mechanical horse used by equine-assisted service programs worldwide. The Equicizer requires no electricity, tools, or maintenance and can be used indoors or out for evaluations, warm-ups, stretching, mounting, dismounting practice, and volunteer training, and build confidence with students, clients, and volunteers. It can easily carry the weight of 2 adults, offering the unique option to ride tandemly. To learn more about the Equicizer, visit equicizer.com. That's EQUICIZER.com. What was it like doing some of the wellness coaching stuff with your daughter? Did you see changes in her?
Yeah, I did. She was always so excited to come here. And I think it was more or less to see the barn cats and then to see Kelly too. And I encouraged her, like, let's just try this, and she did like it and she learned a ton because we did private lessons after that as well.
Was she hesitant at first to come out?
She was, okay, if you say we're going, Mom, we're going to go, kind of thing. She's my sidekick, And when we did that intro with the veterans on that Saturday, that kind of got her a feel, and I think we had talked to Kelly a little bit too, and so she kind of knew what somewhat, and I kind of explained to my daughter, Eva, like, okay, so we're going to sit in the classroom and then I'll go do like a horse activity. I'm like, it's going to be awesome, and she liked it. She ended up, having a couple of favorite horses, and everything. So she like did well, but then like after the 12 weeks or however long it was, she was just kind of, okay, I'm good kind of thing.
She had a lot of growth in her confidence. I know she was pretty timid and pretty shy. She's a typical 13-year-old, sometimes I'm into it and sometimes my energy is really high and sometimes I would just rather be doing something else. So we would hone it in and get through the night. But I saw probably the most growth in her confidence. By the end, it didn't matter what horse we were leading. Round penning, it didn't matter. She was going in with 100% confidence. And so we just try to, again, relate that message to the outside world. When you're communicating with friends, going into junior high is a tough time for any kid, but especially a girl. So we can definitely use that confidence for that age range. But I did see a lot of personal growth. And some eye rolls, I was expecting that. I have kids too, so I was all about it, but she's just a fantastic kid. So
yeah, she was fun. Yeah. And, and then they invited me to go to another location, to work, and I jumped on it. And I kind of made it about myself at that period because it was my time to get away. And Eva will come with me every once in a while, but this is like my time usually. And I don't get much of that,
Yeah,
so I really treasure, my time going out there. I get to listen to whatever music I want, if I want to cry, I can cry, just kind of grieve in my own, just even on the drive. And then once I get there, we go through the exercises and everything like that. And then sometimes we just sit down and hang out and talk, or I go and, visit all the horses or whatever. And it's just a great opportunity. And I feel so blessed that I'm able to continue this with the HETRA crew, especially Kelly and Edie, because when we're doing the exercises, Edie's always checking in with me. She's like, okay, so what do you think they're thinking, the horse that I'm working with, and she would baffle me sometimes because I'm like, I don't know, and she would tell me all these different signs of horses that like I said, like I thought I knew horses, but no, like look for the chewing, the horse or their ears. And, what do you think they're thinking right now? And I've grown in that area just of their body language, and their signs. And that's been crazy to me because I just didn't realize it, I guess.
How do you think that's, or if you do, or how do you think that that's transitioned to like your daily life, like being sensitive to these kinds of signs to horses and that kind of thing? Like, do you think it's transferred at all to your external life outside the barn?
I think between this and just like going through everything that we have gone through, like it's really just opened up my eyes. I don't worry about stuff I can't control anymore. Life is too precious. And Kelly and I just had this conversation a couple nights ago, is looking for that happiness. What'd you say, intentionally?
Yeah, have to intentionally. So I did another bit out here about intentional gratitude, being intentionally grateful. That was a hard word. Intentionally grateful, but you have to do the same thing with happiness, because the world can be a dark place. And if you've experienced dark events, you can easily initially go to a dark place. So you have to be intentional with that. So I'm going to find positive today. I am going to be happy today. With you, I've saw a lot of, again, growth. I thought at the very beginning, you were very angry.
I was, yes.
At a lot of things, as you know, nobody faults you for, but I've seen that weight of that anger been released over the last, 10 months. And it's not so much that's your first emotion to feel, which is the easiest emotion to feel.
Absolutely.
But that's not your go-to anymore.
No.
So we usually work through that at the beginning. I'm angry because A, B, and C. Okay, let's, work through it. By the end of the session, you weren't angry, but now that's not your initial emotion. And I think that just shows like such huge growth over the last, few months.
Yeah. It is a super easy like emotion to go to. I can be angry at the world, but what's that going to change? That's my outlook now. And now it's just all about, enjoying life, because it is so easy to fall into that darkness. I even catch myself some days, like it's not an easy thing. Grief has so many different stages, and you're going to go through a different stage, and they don't go in order,
There is no order.
So,
something different every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And
there's no timeline.
There isn't. No. And
so
I don't know
how. You can
how
have good days. You can have bad days. But our goal is just to have more good.
Right.
Than
Exactly.
Bad, right? That's what we're working towards.
Yes, absolutely. And I just kind of give myself a break now. Like if I don't feel like doing something, all right, give yourself a break. And that has really been big for me, because I was always go, 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 go. Military teaches you, you got to go. You got to get the mission accomplished, and now if I feel overwhelmed or anything like that, I have, Valley to look forward to go there and work with them. And it's just things like that really kind of bring me back down, and like just one day at a time. I don't know how I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning. I could wake up sad, but if I do, okay, let's focus on some of the good things.
Tools to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's interesting, like especially with grief and trauma and how anger, it comes so quick, and sadness and that type of emotion, and that the horses don't read well to anger. They don't, read well to some of those like bigger emotions like that. And so to see their response and then have to change that for them, if that makes sense, like you have to figure out process that emotion so that you can help the horse you're working with. And then I think that translates well into, like you're saying, like you might wake up in the morning and be like, I am angry or I am sad. And you might not have to change that emotion for a horse, but you do it for yourself now.
Absolutely.
You do it for yourself.
Right.
Absolutely.
And what Megan has described of, I need something for me. I need that time to drive out to the barn where I can listen to music, or I can sit in silence, or I can scream and yell, or I can cry, whatever it is you need. And then I need that time with the horses. And then I need the time on the way back and maybe stopping at a smoothie. That's called self-care.
Yeah.
And she gets pinged all the time. Are you doing self-care? I think you need to identify what you're doing is taking care of yourself.
Right.
And how important that is, not just for somebody that is, going through grief or trauma, but just everybody. It is important to have something where you give yourself and allow yourself an opportunity to feel what you need to feel, figure things out, let your brain be silent, let your brain be loud, whatever it is. And then just have that for you. So I think you're doing great things.
Yeah, it was a huge step to like, I knew I needed the time, to myself, but to be able to like define it as self-care, and it's been pointed out to me by Kelly and then, others. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I can put self-care on this, because that
Give
is
yourself permission.
Yes, absolutely. And in my situation, you have a close knit, because of the tragedy and the trauma and, just everything behind it. So it's really hard for me to accept new people into my group, right? So with horses or any kind of animal, they don't judge you. So it's comfortable for me to be there because they're not going to judge me. They just want some love, or let's go work together. Let's have that partnership. And
they always meet you where you're at. No matter what it is, and they accept you wholly, and it's just, it gives me goosebumps.
I know. Absolutely, yeah. And that's the best thing about like horses. And then, of course, I've got my 2 dogs at home that I love to please.
Yes.
That crack me up. But they never judge you. And that's probably been like a huge thing for me because before I came out to HETRA, I was very introverted. And COVID didn't help either, but I've always been very introverted and kind of just stick in my safe zone. And so talking with Kelli and grabbing that courage and stuff and knowing her from, the military and everything like that was huge, very huge for me. Right. And comfortable enough for me to come and see her.
That's a really good point. So if you're wanting to do wellness coaching or some kind of programming, it's so important to build rapport with individuals if you want them to open up to you, or we want them to open up in session or group or whatever it is you're doing, or with the horses.
Absolutely.
If they haven't built that trust, that process it's much harder. It can be done, but it's just longer and harder. But if there's rapport there, they have a trust that this is a safe spot. They trust that you're not going to go tell others of, their openness to whatever they're talking about. That process is easier, I believe.
Oh, absolutely.
So we had rapport. You knew what I did in the military before, which, that was, I speak that language. I can talk about that, but I've never experienced that type of trauma. And I never pretended to know what Megan was going through. As a mom, I don't want to know what you went through. That's a parent's worst nightmare. But I express that, and I express that this is a safe place for you to talk about whatever it is. And if that's one of the days where we have to spend 45 minutes in the classroom, because I just need to talk about this. Or if it's, hey, everything's great, let's go spend time with the horses. We are flexible on that. And you said, or one of you guys said, horses meet us where we were at. If you're part of a programming like this, you need to meet the participant where they're at all the time. So there's not a black and white session where it's very structured and it's very time hacks. You have to be flexible because you're meeting somebody where they're at on that day. And that can look different every time. So flexibility and rapport are 2 key elements to this.
And that's one thing that I was so grateful for, because I think you would send me a message like, what are you feeling? What are, and it was like a day or 2 before I came in. Kelli always like checked in with me. Prior to, or the flexibility, she said from the very get-go, like, this is your program. For you. This is for you. You let me know. And I think that's what I just like loved so much, because I didn't know, like, each time I had no idea how my week was going to go or how I felt that day. So that flexibility that they provided, and they still do it, it's definitely tailored to what's going on with me that day.
And sometimes I have to provide a little more guidance. Yeah. And sometimes I rein that back. Yep. So you have the reins to the program, Megan, but I still can kind of, drive a little bit, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there's days where I'm sure for me, like, I come in and I'm like, I have so much going on in my world that I feel like I can't even make a decision. So those
absolutely.
And then you need a little more guidance.
Let me help you with that.
For sure. Kelli knows me well enough now, she, okay, if I can't come to that decision, she's definitely there to keep me in check. Or even Edie, she kind of keeps me in check as well. And I love it because I need to, I need that guidance.
We all need that sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. That assistance. And it's just, it's awesome. We've been off for a month and I'm like, just like jonesing to get back. But, we got to do, a couple days ago, we came out here and I got to see some horses I hadn't seen for a while. So it was nice.
Good.
Yeah, and hang out a little bit in the heat.
In the heat. Yeah, I hear that. Well, as we kind of close and wrap up, do you want to tell us about maybe one of your favorite activities that you've done with the horses, or maybe Kelli has one that like you thought you saw the most progress with, or that sort of thing?
My favorite one was probably the round pen. And that here at HETRA, we did it. I think it was one of our last sessions, but in Valley, I've done it a couple different times with a couple different horses. And the one that I match up with most, I personally think they are very hesitant and it takes a bit to gain their trust as horse. And so that first time, I think it was almost, if I remember right, but the second time we did it, we paired up. And that's awesome to me and very like rewarding because we were able to make that partnership and we kind of knew each other a little bit more. So that's probably my most memorable like activity that we did.
There's something about that join up. The first time I joined with my 2-year-old, I just cried like a baby. I don't know why. It's just like you're standing there with your back to them and your hand out, and then like you feel that muzzle on you, and you're just like, you trust me.
Right.
It's just it's powerful.
It's very powerful.
And I would agree. Watching different individuals through the course of the last couple of years out here, the round penning has always been really impactful. And I think I talked it up pretty good to you too. I'm like, in 2 weeks, we're doing this activity that's going to be amazing and it's going to be life changing and earth changing. And yeah, I mean, it didn't let down. And we definitely have different horses for different individuals for the round penning activities, some that are really hard and some that are super sensitive. And you get, if you're super lucky, you get to do multiple horses and see the difference of what your energy can make that horse do, or if that horse is going crazy, what is your internal energy? We had talked about that a few times. So that one's great. Along that lines, the leading without lead ropes, where the horse completely has to trust you. And we're doing that through obstacles. And my favorite memory was Eva, your daughter, doing that. Again, just take charge, command, confidence overflowing. And that horse was in her back pocket through every obstacle. And she walked through like it was no big deal. And I'm like, that's awesome. If you even knew how great that was. So those types of activities will be ingrained in both of us.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. That partnership and yeah, it's pretty freaking cool. And goosebumpy.
I know. I'm over here just like goosebump city. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough, both of you, for coming on and talking. I know that sometimes this can be a hard thing to talk about, and trauma and things that happen to us is hard, but sharing it is also important too, if that's something you can do. And I think sharing your journey with the horses and with HETRA and your story has been impactful for me, and I'm sure it will be for lots of listeners too. So do you have any parting wishes for anybody?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity and I just want to express my grateful and just how much HETRA's really impacted my life, and words can't express like the changes and the peace. And, every time I come out or work, in ballet, just the heaviness kind of goes away for a little bit. And I just grow stronger each time. It's very healing. And sharing my story is also healing as well. So I'm just very grateful for this opportunity. And HETRA, I try to campaign and I tell everybody about, I do.
She does.
She's boots on the ground marketing for us.
Yeah. I do it all the time.
I see the social media posts all the time.
I'm like, you guys got to do it, and I share my, experience out here. I'm like, they are awesome people. So
well, that's the best thing we can ask for is just that word of mouth.
Absolutely. And I just want to end on how proud I am of you and all of your accomplishments out here. This is just a tiny piece of your journey. But I am honored that you chose us to be part of that. And yeah, keep campaigning for us because we can change one life at a time with these beautiful creatures.
Absolutely.
Yes, we can.
100%.
This podcast is presented by HETRA University, an educational arm of the Heartland Equine Therapeutic Riding Academy. HETRA University's mission is to provide high-quality educational offerings to our participants and the equine assisted services community. Craving more content like this? We invite you to check out our series of webinars and much, much more over at hetrauniversity.org. If you'd like to help us work toward our mission, you can make a donation by clicking on the link in the show notes below or visit us at hetra.org. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, my biggest thanks to you all for helping HETRA change lives one stride at a time.